Hi everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of producing a song in Logic inspired by 5 AM from Animal Crossing New Horizons. So as I mentioned last time, I was going to kind of build out the structure of the song a little bit, add a chorus, maybe a verse or something. So what we're going to do now is just kind of talk about the changes that I've made to the song since last time, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so the first thing I wanted to talk about was I did make a couple of changes to this brass pad, the synthesizer that I kind of struggled to find the correct sound for last time. So let's take a look at this ES2 screen. What I ended up doing was I actually added another oscillator. Last time I actually took away this oscillator because I thought it didn't sound quite right, but now I was kind of wishing for a little bit more body to the sound, so I did add a sine wave in oscillator 2. And using this little triangle control, you can adjust the balance between oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. I kind of like having that second oscillator being dialed up a little bit. So here's how it sounds. I think that sounds a lot closer to what I was kind of looking for. I don't want to completely take away the oscillator 1 because I do kind of like that it still has a little bit of that jagged sawtooth quality to it, but I feel like the sine just kind of adds a little bit more roundedness, a little bit more of a natural feel to it. As for everything else, I didn't tinker with it too much, so this is pretty much as you saw it last time. The other thing though is I noticed that in the EQ there's this really big resonance. Yeah, at around 400. So I just kind of dial that back like this. And that's pretty much how I've shaped this synthesizer sound. So now let's take a little tour of what I've done so far. So I've added basically just an introduction section which doesn't have the melody in it. And I'm planning to maybe like kind of fade this in, but also kind of add a bit of an effect to make it feel like it's kind of emerging from the depths. I think you'll see what I mean later. So this verse is pretty much the same as it was. So now for the chorus, I actually added a new melody that I recorded with the same electric piano. The brass pad is pretty much the same idea, just like a couple of notes here and there, but instead of having these really slow rolled chords for the piano part, I actually have a little bit faster rolled chords, which I thought sounded really good. And I was just messing around with drums, and I started using this Indian and Middle Eastern kit, and just came up with this little beat. I thought it was really nice and bouncy, added a lot of, variety to the track that I didn't have before. So now here's what the chorus sounds like. I think that the way the chorus sounds kind of sounds like the music from A Short Hike, if you've ever listened to it, especially with these rolled piano chords and the kind of like slowly fading background synthesizer. So the second verse is pretty much the same, although I've maintained this Indian and Middle Eastern kit beat because I like it so much. The first thing I want to do is do that little filter effect that I mentioned earlier, basically fading the track in, but also making it seem like it's kind of rising out of the depths a little bit. And the way we're going to do that, I think, should be by putting some automation on the main track. By the main track, what I really mean is the stereo out track. It just controls everything you've got. So let's try auto filter. I don't think we want LFO. You hear that it's kind of like going back and forth. And I'm hearing a little bit of tape delay, interestingly. That's kind of surprising. I didn't think that this would do that. So let's turn off envelope and see what happens. Alright, nice. So now we've just kind of got the filter. Cutoff is basically at what frequency we want to filter out the noise a little bit. So if you notice, if I turn up the cutoff, it comes out, with a lot more high end. And then once I do that, it cuts out a lot of that high end. So now we're going to turn on the automation track. I do want to show the stereo out track, so let's see how to do that. So I just went on Google and figured out that if you press Shift Command M, then it shows the stereo out track. Never be afraid to basically go on Google and figure out how things work in Logic. So much of this is just Googling. So now we have the auto filter on stereo out, and now we can automate all of these different parameters. And of course, I want to check out cutoff, and I don't know. Let's just see what happens if we just do this and see what it sounds like. Okay, yeah, I really like that. Let's also see what we can do if we just mess around with the resonance controls. Maybe have this be going the other direction as the cutoff. Yeah, I like that. It just adds a little bit of like harmonic interest to the sound. I think that intro sounds really good. The other thing I was thinking about doing is that this percussion seems a little bit too clean to me, right? It just seems very like stock, out of the box sound. One thing maybe I'll try to do is just add bit crusher, just because, you know, this is inspired by video game music. So just mess around with these controls a little bit. I mean, that sounds like an 8-bit game. I don't know if I want that exactly. And then with this mix knob, you can kind of dial back the effect a little bit. Okay, I think I like where that is right now. It's a little bit cleaner, it's a little bit sharper, and then obviously, you know, it's less stock. I think we'll keep that. Let me think about what to do with this Middle Eastern kit, because I actually really like the stock sound, and I'm not sure if I want to change anything, but let's just try out what some pedal board effects would sound like just for fun. Okay, I did not expect that. So I think we'll just leave that as it is. So the other thing I really like to do with my tracks is add a little bit of a counter melody to the second verse, just to kind of add a little bit more variety to the track. I don't want the second verse to be completely like the first. Maybe it's my classical music background, but I always think that multiple voice melodies are cool. So let's add that. Cool. So, I mean, that sounds good to me. One of the last things that I want to just kind of put down in terms of instrumentals is maybe a little bit of an ambient arpeggiator in this last chorus, just to add a little bit of nice texture. And honestly, I just love arpeggiators. So let's just browse through these and see what sounds good. I'll have to use that for another song. I really like that. Arpeggiators are wild. That could be its own song. Alright, so I ended up scrolling through all of these and I really like the sound tripping cycles. I think I'll make a little bit of an alteration to the synth sound, but overall I'm really happy with how it sounds with everything. So let's record it. Let's just make these more uniform. Right. So let's take a look at this. I'm thinking that it has a little bit too much treble presence. Let's bring down the cut a little bit. Yeah. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this last bit, so I think we can just leave it at that. So really the last thing that I want to do is that in 5 AM, there's kind of this really neat effect where I think it's specifically the electric piano sound. It kind of pans back and forth, and I think there's also a little bit of tape delay. It just lends a really interesting atmosphere to the song, so we're going to try to recreate that with the electric piano, and I think after that, we're pretty much done with the track. I am not quite sure how to do this, but I think the first thing I want to do is just put on a simple tape delay. I mean, already that's kind of getting closer to what the track sounds like. I kind of like this. It just adds a little bit of glitchiness to the sound, which is, I think, kind of what you're hearing in 5 AM. I think I'll just leave it at that. I think the most important thing about that sound, though, is that there seems to be panning back and forth, and I think that the way I'm going to achieve this is by using the tremolo effect. Let's see what that sounds like, just baseline. Yeah, so I want them to be out of phase, I think, And let's see. I don't want it to be smooth. Let's see what that sounds like. Yes. And I don't want that for the chorus. I want the chorus to be more grounded. I think that's a good principle. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, maybe I'll add a little bit more reverb to this track just to give it a little bit more room. But yeah, that's kind of the effect that I was looking for. Alright, so that's pretty much it for what I wanted to do with instrumentation. I think the next thing that I'm going to do before just completely wrapping this up is probably just do a little bit of compression and equalizing, just a little bit of mixing to gel everything together. I think since the focus of this video is just talking about kind of getting instruments down, melodies, composition, I don't think I might talk as much about the mixing, but maybe that'll be for another video. That's pretty much it. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the end of this video to hear the full track. Thanks.